Good evening. Welcome to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at diabloii.net, which I can almost say appropriately every time now. I am joined on the show tonight by a semi-returning, long-time-ago guest, Katniss, a.k.a. Leviathan.
Aloha.
A.k.a. Stevie Steve.
I got all the names.
Probably not, no. And you have a story about your recent activities in a minute, and also by Tyr.
Yeah, that's me.
Who has some sort of horrible, monstrous bear thing for an avatar. Can you please explain your Skype avatar?
It's actually a mammoth, an anthropomorphic mammoth. That's what you're looking at.
Why does it have a big gulp?
It has a pipe.
Oh. Are you sure it's not a big gulp?
It's an unfinished work.
And you are a painter. You previously had Pugacorn, which was the best avatar ever.
Well, Pugacorn will return, I'm sure.
Exactly. And Katniss has some kind of giant, lizard underwater thing, which is a Leviathan.
Yeah, apparently it's from magic, as Nineball tells me. I don't know.
And we call you Katniss, even though you mostly go by Leviathan, and people think you're a cute archer from a post-apocalyptic world and try to pick you up in the forums sometimes.
Every now and again.
Yeah, that's always fun. So, Katniss, speaking of Leviathan, whatever your name is, you were on this podcast forever ago, fairly often, along with Nineball, and then you guys split off and you started doing your Westmarch workshop, also known as Sanctuary Sweatshop.
Everyone loves that name, by the way.
Only known to me as that, but I enjoy it. And then a couple of months ago, you've been doing lots of streaming and playing, 8,000 hours a day of Crusader, and then suddenly you were sort of vanished from the community, and you're like, I'm taking some time off. And you didn't really make a public statement, and then the next Sanctuary Sweatshop, Nineball did this intro with this, gravelly, depressed voice, like he was Walter Cronkite on 9/11, and he's like, Katniss is taking some time off.
It was a complete funeral dirge.
He has personal issues, and he needs some... People were like, maybe he got pregnant, or maybe he's, been killed. Maybe you were disfigured in, a microwave fire because you didn't put enough water in your ramen before you started it. Were any of these things true? Where did you go, and why are you back? And is this all a big secret and you can't explain it?
Well, nothing I do is a secret, really, except for when I try and... Well, we'll get into that at some point. But no, I what Nineball said was pretty much right on. I just needed to take some time away. I was, you mentioned the whole, streaming thing. I was doing everything, some people just do podcasts, or some people just listen to podcasts, or some people just play Diablo, but I was doing everything. I was listening to all the podcasts. I was making my own. I was streaming. I was playing a ton of hours, and after a while I just realized, this is all I do. And even when I was at work, I was just thinking about, how can I improve this podcast, or which one haven't I listened to yet, and all this stuff. So I just needed to, turn it all off for a bit, go out into nature. I did a lot of running, kind of cleared my head a little bit. And now, for the most part, Season 3-2 was dragging on, and it kind of felt like it was, ramming my head against the wall, because, there was people that were doing the multiplayer stuff, so they've got the Crazy Paragon, like you guys have been talking about previously. So just as a mostly solo player, that felt kind of fruitless, and it just felt like a good time to take a break. But Season 4 is coming, Crusader's got a brand new set, so of course I'm super hype on that, and I had to come back.
That sounds almost believable, but we know there's much more to it.
So, how many comic books did you write?
You were secretly hiding out at Blizzard and beta testing Diablo 4 or something, and you can't tell us about that, right?
If I told you, I'd have to...
What did Josh Mascara have for lunch last Tuesday?
Not fish.
Exactly. And so, do you have any exciting actions about what you've been up to recently, Tyr, or would you like to just make something up and lie like I usually do?
Sure. I went to space, and then when I got back, I threw a rope around the moon, and I pulled it down. I don't know. No, nothing all that exciting. I just have been playing a little bit of Diablo. I'm hoping to finish out the season strong, and a little bit of PTR, and just waiting for the new stuff, that's all.
Okay, that was less than satisfying, but we'll have to go with that. You'll be like a mammoth with a big gulp again.
I'm sorry I disappointed you.
Yeah, and I have lots of real-life stories, but they're all boring and have nothing to do with video games. We haven't played Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 in about 2 weeks, since the PTR has been kind of going on forever. It was fun to test, Kanai's Cube and everything, and then it's like, okay, I'm ready for this to be live now, and they're like, hey, it's coming in a month and a half, and you're like, God damn it.
Well, we could have seen it coming, honestly.
Well, yeah, the date is not a surprise to anybody except for people who use the Battle.net forums. And they're like, why is the patch so delayed? I'm like, dude, August isn't over yet, man.
Right.
And of course, we had our hopes for Gamescom, getting a Diablo 3 expansion at Gamescom, and obviously that didn't come to anything. There was no Diablo 3 at all at Gamescom. But now we're all hoping for BlizzCon because we're stupid and we believe things will always happen soon.
This could be an opportunity for him, actually. And I know that a lot of people feel like Diablo gets shafted at most BlizzCons. They don't pay very much attention to it. So maybe this is Diablo's year. Maybe, one of the big keynote announcements for this year is something new that's Diablo related.
I like how you said feels like, as though that's a subjective opinion. Diablo gets shafted at BlizzCon. There's never any cover. Okay, not never, but generally, there was a lot of it, obviously, in 2008 and 2009 when it was still building up, but many years. I went to the 5 and the 7 BlizzCons, and you could, find, one poster of Bale in a corner somewhere, and that was it. I mean, that was when, Blizzard North was just about to shut down in 2005, and then had just, they were just starting off, and it was, rebooting it, and Jay Wilson and stuff, and, God, I said his name again, didn't I? It's like the boogeyman. If I see him 3 times, he'll appear in my bedroom and eat my cheeseburger.
We can't have that.
Let's hope. Well, yeah, exactly. I didn't have a cheeseburger. And neither does Jay. But so in past years, BlizzCon has been generally about WoWcraft, and last year it was mainly about Overwatch and lots of Heroes of the Storm, and StarCraft always has a big esport thing, and then there's some Diablo machines off in a corner somewhere. Have you ever been to a BlizzCon tier?
I have not. I've done a live stream a couple of times now, which is, from everything I've been told, maybe even a better experience than being there live, at least in terms of the coverage. But, you're right. Yeah, there's never something specific about Diablo. They don't put a whole lot of attention on it unless there's a big expansion pack coming out. And even then, it's like, I guess it makes sense. It comes down to the content of this game, which is pretty simple. It's a simple game. You click on things and they die. It's not exactly rocket science. So, talking about new features, well, now we found a new way to click on it and it died. Now you can right-click on it and it'll die. And it's like, okay, well, great.
But you can have a new character when you click on it and it dies.
Yeah.
You realize every video game in the world is click on things and they die. That's not exactly a game-breaking analogy here.
I guess that's true. There are no buttons, really. It's just, worky.
You have been to BlizzCons, Katniss. Which ones have you gone to, and how was your Diablo coverage compared to... You follow all of Blizzard games, though, correct? So you're pretty much happy about everything.
For the most part. I've actually I haven't been yet, because last year I was supposed to go.
I thought you went 2 years ago.
No, I watched that one. So
You must have been the other black person I saw.
The one and only. I believe it. No, there's
actually lots of Anaheim security guards who are black, the people who work for the convention center, so...
All right.
It's okay to make bad jokes because we're old friends here. Okay, go ahead then. So seriously, for some reason I thought I'd seen you at BlizzCon 2 years ago.
No,
to
LA.
You went to the launch party for the expansion.
Yeah, we met there.
Yeah, I know I'd seen you in LA for something. So
that's right. Yeah, no, I've watched the last one. I think I watched the one before that as well. And similar sentiments to Tier. It's nice when you do care about all the different games because then you have a plethora of panels and things to watch. And you kind of care a little bit more about the main stage and whatnot. But Diablo is my favorite game of all of them, so it does sadden me when I get that panel thing going, and it's like, hey, we're talking about this one thing that we kind of already told you about. Especially because we're the kind of people that study this stuff, right? We're always picking up on every little news bit that comes out. So a lot of this stuff ends up being a rehash. So we're not really getting anything from it too. So I'm hoping this is the year.
Okay, if any of our listeners are playing the drinking game at home, plethora was the first word of the night. Take a shot. We'll be getting to a second word later on, I'm sure. So I just posted news 20 minutes before we started here, and I'm having trouble getting my EP in the same room with me right now, but I'll try to continue anyway. If you hear a muffled sound, it's my EP blocking all the air into the room. I just got a invite to Media Pass for BlizzCon this year, which is earlier than they usually send those out. And, I posted that on the news, not just for my EP's inflation, of course, because I'm special and all that, right? But because, if they're inviting Diablo 3 fan sites as media members, then maybe there's going to be some Diablo 3 stuff, right? I will freely admit I said the exact same thing 12 months ago when I got invited to last year's BlizzCon, and we saw how that turned out. So I could be wrong, but it's, a little bit practical. And, I posted the part of the email. I don't know if it's supposed to be confidential or not. I don't think so. Nothing in it said it was confidential. But I didn't cut out all, I didn't include the details about the link you go to and that kind of stuff, but I just put, the feature list and the title photo. And the promotional picture has nothing from Diablo 3 in it, and we had that at Gamescom 2 months ago, and we were all like, maybe they're not showing it because they're going to show it, and it's super double secret reverse images. And then there was absolutely no Diablo 3 at Gamescom of any kind.
Right.
And at least the feature list for Diablo for this year's BlizzCon in this email I just got does say Diablo 3, but it's like the 11th game listed. So are they being super secret, sneaky, and just not putting it at the top to lull us? Or is this actually just going to be nothing again?
I think they may actually be saving it for BlizzCon. I mean, when you think about it, in terms of surprises that they could roll out, there's not much else that they can do. They've announced the new WoW expansion. So while I'm sure we'll get details on that, I'm not thinking that we're getting anything huge in terms of great big revelations. StarCraft, we already know about the expansion for that. There'll probably be maybe a release date at most. Overwatch, maybe some new heroes, a release date, possibly beta. And then Hearthstone just announced a new expansion. So they're pretty much full up. There's not much else they can announce as far as a big keynote item, to say, hey, we're working on something new. So if they are, and I hope they are, it would make sense for them to delay it from Gamescom and move it over to BlizzCon.
Yeah, you follow all this stuff, Katniss. Leviathan. What am I calling you in here? Whatever, you don't care. You're not.
I'm gonna go with it.
You're still offended by my security guard reference, aren't you? I understand. You should be. My white privilege blinded me to your pain. So, seriously, so what he just said, I mean, you follow all these other games, I mean, it's funny, the press for, the email thing is like, what's new in StarCraft 2? I'm like, don't we know what's new in StarCraft 2? I mean, yeah. People know everything about it. Aren't they, like, beta testing?
Right. I'm like surprised.
And that's actually listed above Diablo 3 in their bullet point list. So it's like, I kind of figured the big things at the show were going to be World of Warcraft, and then, of course, they just announced the expansion for that at Gamescom. And Overwatch, obviously, is going to be a big thing. I mean, I don't think they've done a whole lot of announcements of that since last year where the game debuted. Yeah. But, Hearthstone, they're doing it, that's constantly going, right? And then Heroes of the Storm, they're putting out a new patch like every week and a half, They're just non-stop Heroes of the Storm.
Oh, yeah.
So it's hard to imagine they've got some huge backlog of content for any of these other games except for Overwatch, right? It does seem like if there's going to be a big announcement, I guess more WoW features maybe?
I think also there will probably be another Hearthstone expansion announcement too, because it looks like they're trying to do one every 3 to 4 months or so, and the Grand Tournament's coming out this month, August, so by November, December, they'll be due up for another. Even if it's just an adventure, like that's when they do like their 30-card release or whatever through their PvE content. I think you'll see something for that. Also, people have been talking about the Warcraft movie too, because that'll be coming up next summer.
Yeah, that's a good point. They had a huge trailer for that last year at BlizzCon.
Yeah,
I'm sure that'll be a
lot
of
deal, I'm sure.
Definitely. And then
what are the odds? Hearthstone is entirely WoW characters still, right? I mean, Warcraft, not just World of Warcraft, but
yeah, Hearthstone's entirely WoW universe.
What are the odds that they have a Diablo expansion like Heroes of the Storm has?
I think that they've talked about that before. I couldn't point to a specific quote, but I'm pretty sure that the answer, maybe a year or two ago from the devs was, no, this is intended to be Warcraft universe only. We won't rule anything out, but don't get your hopes up kind of thing. Their typical language when they're trying to say, no, it's not going to happen, guys. But they don't want to, tie themselves down.
Yeah, I remember one thing that they keyed on to was there's so much content from World of Warcraft. They're like, we could do this for a while. And if you're going by kind of the style that they've been doing their adventures, which is going by raids, like how there are tons of raids that they haven't even touched yet that can fit into the model of the bosses and the wings and the things like that. So I think they still will at least tap that well pretty dry until they're good to go into a different, different universe.
Okay, that encourages me. I've been mildly annoyed by there being nonstop Diablo 3 content and it's all in Heroes of the Storm. And I'm like, I don't need this with Hearthstone too. It's like, oh look, new awesome Diablo 3 stuff. Oh, it's in another game. Sorry. So speaking of that, just to segue to that briefly, before I have a whole obnoxious BlizzCon joke here to do, but we've had a lot of news lately about Heroes of the Storm stuff and Diablo 3, and if you get to level 70 in Season 4, you get some kind of, I think you get a mount. Was it the Tyrael mount?
Malthael.
In Hearthstone?
Malthael
mount, yeah, I forget what those angels, whatever. I ride them all like donkeys. And there's other stuff where if you play Heroes of the Storm and do cool stuff, you get special Diablo 3 banners and other such things. I suppose both you guys follow these games, so you're all on board with this, but I can certainly devil's advocate here in a second, do the alternate opinion. What do you guys think of obviously Blizzard's been doing cross-promotions for years. You go to BlizzCon, you get special WoW pets, that kind of thing. what do you guys think of having to play another Blizzard game to get stuff in another Blizzard game? I mean, like if you're a completist for Diablo 3, now you've got to play Hearthstone to get your Diablo 3?
I think it's really smart. I mean, obviously it's a business thing, right? Like if you're looking at it from Blizzard's perspective, it's amazing for them because most of the games that right now are required to be played are free to play. So you have to do Hearthstone and get 100 play wins, and you get a Hearthstone card mount in Heroes of the Storm. Heroes of the Storm, you play that, and then you get some benefit in Diablo. But now Diablo is a game that you actually have to pay for. So those people who are like, man, I'm not going to have all the mounts in the game in Heroes, even though they didn't pay anything to play Heroes, now they're probably going to go and buy Diablo and do that just to get the mount, if they're really that dedicated, like you're saying, if they're true completionists. So for them, they're going to sell more copies, and I mean, we saw the numbers that you talked about previously on them selling tons of Diablo, so why not incentivize people to go and buy more?
I like the part where you say they play Heroes of the Storm and don't spend any money on it.
Well, some people try not to.
Or Hearthstone. Somebody on the podcast last week, I forget which guest it was, but he's like, I can't play those free-to-play games, they're too expensive. Which I think pretty well sums it up, you know?
T-shirt. Yeah.
I can't afford to play free-to-play games.
I think we're lucky on Diablo in that Diablo's a buy-in game. Those other games that I think they try to avoid having paid-for games give you stuff for other paid-for games because they don't want you to feel like you're having to pay money over and over again on something you've already purchased to get something. So I think we should zoom in on the fact that the other games that they're doing this cross-promotional content with are the free-to-play games. It's specifically Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone. You know, so I think it's okay. Also, I think, Flux, you need to try harder, and you're being a Blizzard fan noob.
Wow.
Pay more money.
Shots fired. Oh, don't forget, too, that this isn't this is not the first time that we've seen this, because I think it was people that bought what was it, Diablo, the Reaper's Deluxe Edition. You got Vala, the Demon Hunter, in Heroes of the Storm for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually just started playing a little Heroes, and I logged over into that game, and I'm like, why do I own only one character? I didn't even realize why she was there. She's great, though. She's a lot of fun to play. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's fine, and obviously...
Well, now I play Heroes of the Storm now. I got my Reaper of Souls expansion, whatever that thing was, Collector's Edition, and I have a Hearthstone character. Awesome.
Flex, have you actually
tried... Have
you logged in at all and tried to play Vala? Because I think your reaction would be...
I don't even know that the game exists on my computer. I don't think it's connected to my internet.
Because I
played at Blizzcon.
She's got a similar toolkit in that she's got Vault, she's got, a lot of her shots and stuff, but it feels so different. I would just really... I think I would lose it if you started
I don't really play Demon Hunters much, so I'm not sure I would like it.
Just promise me that if you ever do, you'll record it so that we can see.
Oh, yes, that one. I'm sure there's people just lined up for that visual.
You know what's funny is I started, like you were just saying, I've actually started to play a little bit of Heroes this week, and I was working on Vala because she is my only owned character as well. And then I went back into PTR to work on my Demon Hunter that I was messing around with, and I started playing way more aggressively, even though it's like hardcore, and I'm like, wait, why am I like getting close to dying all the time? Like, oh yeah, I have all these like weird mechanics now from Heroes that are translating over, so I could totally see how that would like actually screw you over too.
That's a grim story. You should go to softcore like the rest of the podcast guys.
Never.
Never, of course.
Not I.
Even on, I played softcore on the PTR, just, you're going fast and testing. And then, of course, they make it so there's a 4-hour queue for softcore. It's like, well, I guess I'm playing hardcore again.
Yeah, I mean, at that rate, it's faster to just port your character over if you die.
Right.
Yeah, could definitely be the case. So here's my big up. The interesting thing about BlizzCon coming up this year. So what if we get the opening ceremonies, right? And they always do that speech where Metzen goes out there and talks about everything and wears his sexy glasses. And then he's like, here's the new stuff, and I have a hoodie on, and then everybody cheers. And they talk about new games. And what if he comes out and he's going, like, they start playing, like, Diablo 3 music, or Diablo music, and we're all excited. You hear Tristram theme or something. And he's going, and we've got a huge announcement for you guys. Yay! Everybody cheers. Katniss cheers. Yay! And then he's like, we are going to... But I've got some bad news for you guys. I know you're all waiting for the next expansion. We are not going to do another Diablo 3 expansion. Boo! Everyone wails and moans, and there's rending of garments, and... One of the elevators crashes to the earth in the background. And
are they paying you to write this for him, by the way?
Yes, this is great.
This is all. I do everything free. And then he goes, but wait, and the music kicks up again. We have a special Diablo announcement. We're not doing the expansion because we are going right to Diablo 4. Boom! And then there's exciting music and exploding stuff. Everyone goes crazy, right? And then he says, and now, to bring out the game director of Diablo 4. I know you're all wondering who's running this project.
Oh, no.
He's returning from our previous effort. You're going to be so excited by this. He's a proven ARPG developer. He's the author, the creator, the game director of the biggest selling computer game of all time, with a lot of experience in the Diablo thing. It's Jay Wilson, yeah! And they bring out Jay Wilson as the Diablo 4 game director.
We know that you liked Jay Wilson, so we decided to double him. We brought him back on again.
So, as we know, Jay Wilson left Diablo 3 and moved to an unannounced project.
Mm-hmm.
What if that unannounced project is Diablo 4? Would that just be like the biggest kick in the nuts in the history of nut kicking?
That'd be the greatest troll ever. Because I know a lot of people, the people who were really looking into, like, oh, there's a new posting and what are they talking about with, Diablo Universe, whatever. That would just be so funny, though, because everyone knows that he's in there working on something, and we have no idea what it is, or like if he was part of any of these WoW expansions or whatever have you. But that would be so funny. I think it would still be awesome, because at the end of the day, let's not forget that like Diablo 3 has some of the best gameplay that any RPG has experienced. Like people play that other game that we don't talk about, the one that has 3 letters as well, and they like it, but it doesn't have that same, like, visceral gameplay, and D3 does, mostly because of Jay Wilson's input on that. So, like, maybe this time, they make a more collaborative stew, or whatever it was that went wrong the first time. It doesn't have to be the end of the world if he's the game director on this one.
Wow, your check is cleared this week, dude. You must be angling for a BlizzCon media invite. You're going to get 2 just for that there.
Yeah, man, I guess I need
one.
You just explained why Jay Wilson coming back to Diablo 4 would be a great thing.
That combat, man.
Well, D3 and the auction house could be their grand experiment. Now they're going to get down to business. I wanted to actually chime in and mention the fact that, oddly enough, I think D3 may be at a point now where it needs an update in terms of it needs a new engine. It needs a Diablo 4. It has aged more and at a quicker pace, I think, than any other Blizzard game I've ever seen. Especially when you compare it to some of the models that you see in Heroes of the Storm. It is a world of difference, the texture quality and the number of polys on those models. And even the art direction, I think, maybe is a little bit better on those. Obviously, it's a different style, it's a different world, but the game really has started to kind of show its age, and it's not that old. I mean, people played Diablo 2 for ages, and it still kind of looks all right, I mean, obviously it's pixelated to hell and back, but that's just what happens. But when you look at D3, you zoom in on some of those textures, they just look like mashed, apple pie. It's a really strange phenomenon that they made that, and then a couple years later they did Heroes of the Storm, and there was such a notable improvement in the quality of the graphics.
That's an interest.
Aren't there like 10 units on the screen at once in Heroes of the Storm usually, as opposed to like 500 in Diablo 3?
Well, it depends.
I thought they were much larger and much closer views, so they have to be more detailed. Whereas D3 is such a high view.
There are creeps a lot of the time, and enemies from the map itself. So, I mean, I would say on average, you've probably got anywhere between a third and a half of the number of units on screen in Heroes of the Storm that you do in D3. But I kind of feel like at this point the computer hardware is at the point where it's not an issue. They could easily do a D4. You put all the quality you want into it and have as many things on there as you need.
Okay, Katniss, I'm curious about your opinion on this. Partially because you're going to either have to say Diablo 3 doesn't look good or another game looks better, and you're going to be really torn on this as a Blizzard fanboy. Because no matter what you say, you're making one game or another sound bad, and they're both made by Blizzard. So what is your opinion on the look of D3 versus Hearthstone, etc.?
I don't disagree with Tyr, actually. Oh my God. I know, it's crazy. This is something I hadn't really thought about, but now that you mention it, and now that I'm thinking about the comparative images, you're right. Like, and if you also think, too, like, since the release of the base game, Diablo 3, we've had a generational jump, like PS4, Xbox One, all those platforms have come out. And so there has already been an uptick in technology. So I'm pretty sure if they were to go through and develop a new base of game, Diablo 4, it would benefit a ton from just what advancements have been made. And, I mean, there are some really beautiful games out there, too. So, I don't even think that D3 is necessarily, like, a not beautiful game. I think there are some areas in that game that are pretty awesome. But, yeah, I mean, it could use the graphical update. But I think more importantly, I was hoping that you were going to go in the direction of saying, like, they've done the best that they can with some of the original mechanics that are in there, such as like the base stat system, the pool of affixes that we have, etc. Like going to a brand new Diablo 4 would be a way to rework all that stuff, and I think that would be an interesting thing to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would be. Obviously, when you make a new game, you can throw in whatever you want because you're putting in the development time and the money. I do think most of those other changes could probably still be made in the game systems in D3. I mean, there have been a lot of changes, even just in terms of free content updates over the last year, where, I mean, we've got whole new menu items, whole new systems that never existed before. So I think it's a flexible enough system in terms of the actual stats in the background of the game in terms of the mechanics, but pretty much the only thing that you can't do, I think, to update a game is a complete graphical rehaul. Nobody's ever done it on an expansion. It all uses the same engine. You may throw in an extra shader or something like that, make your water more pretty, but for the most part it can't be done in terms of, we're on a completely new system now. Why not at that point just make it a new game? So I think that's the big thing that's holding them back. One thing I would want to say, and this is pure tinfoil hat speculation, but...
Awesome, go ahead.
What do you guys think about if they decide, we're doing D4, and we're doing it in the Heroes engine? They built that engine from the ground up after they decided that the StarCraft 2 engine wasn't going to work for Heroes of the Storm. And it looks spectacular. I mean, it really does. So they have an opportunity there, I think, where if they wanted to do something like this, there's such similar gameplay types. They're both isometric top-down games. They both work with cooldowns and that kind of thing. You could pretty easily build a D4, in that Heroes engine, no problem. And at that point you'd have a bit of parity in between the two games in terms of graphical look.
That's an interesting thought. I mean, it would lend some credence, too, to the idea that maybe BlizzCon could hold an announcement not about an expansion of D3, but going forward to D4. Although when you think about how long has Heroes been in development, right? Like, once that engine was finished, has that been enough time for them to put together a D4? Like, I'm curious about the timelines there and how much exact development they would need in order to get it out there. One thing I did want to mention, though, is, do you guys remember, I want to say it was 2 patches ago, 2.1.2 maybe, that they rearranged the file system. They introduced like that CASC or whatever it was. Yeah. And so a lot of people were looking at that and saying, oh, new file system, maybe this is something that we can read into for an expansion. And if that's still the case, then what was the point of even going through with that if they're just going to dash it for D4?
I thought that was a system they put into all their games.
And they did it.
That was like an across-the-board upgrade over MPQs, which were their technology from like 25 years ago.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel that it's not so much in terms of gameplay and graphics. That CASC system was more about pushing hotfixes and updates quicker, and also about better file storage and file handling. So smaller file sizes, easier updates, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it couldn't have hurt them. Basically it was changing a file format, and then going through and having everyone switch over to the new one on their system. And I do think we have a lot to owe that we owe them a lot for that, because that's probably one of the reasons we're getting these seasonal updates as quickly as we have.
Well, for one thing, they started working on Diablo 3 in the year 2000 in a 3D engine, and obviously that wasn't released. Blizzard North closed in 2005, and then they started up again in 2006 in Blizzard Irvine. But we know they kept a lot of the basic game story and plot and designs and monster arts and stuff like that. A lot of the concept art we see is from before Blizzard North closed. I don't think they kept the game engine, but I mean, I'm sure it's not. At most recent, the game engine is damn near 10 years old at this point.
That's true.
I mean, 2006, so it's not exactly a brand new thing. It doesn't mean, it's not exactly Unreal 5 here, right? Yeah. So who knows what it could be. But I think that probably, the Diablo games are meant to be kind of gritty and gothic looking and not super crisp, high detailed. It's not meant to look like, that's what many people find really weird about how Path of Exile looks like. It's so gritty and like polygony,
Yeah.
Or pixely, at least, not really polygony.
Yeah, and I do think that this game type lends itself a little easier to being able to use that type of graphic system without getting outdated too quickly. But at the same time, I think there's no reason not to have higher fidelity. It's always a good thing. when you can increase that resolution, it's going to look better.
And of course, Diablo 3 has so many enemies on the screen at once and so much stuff, and it's meant to look kind of painterly. It's not meant to look crisp and clear. It's meant to look a little bit like a watercolor sort of. So who knows? I mean, I'm sure Blizzard would have some. This would be a good thing to corner one of the artists at BlizzCon, and when you get story time with Wyatt, when we get hostage time with Wyatt at BlizzCon this year, we can. He actually mentioned that. Speaking of hostage time with Wyatt, on the live stream they posted this week, he mentioned that they've done lots of graphical improvements recently and lots of cutting down on lag and latency on people's machines. And the one public example is the Witch Doctor skill. Where with Carnival the Helm, they made it so only 5 of the fetishes fire darts instead of all of them. But they said he said on the stream, that's one of many things they've done, where just lots of stuff they're trying to optimize it and not have as much redundant graphics and such for performance, which sounds like something you would need to do if you had an older graphics engine that was struggling to keep up with the modern game's requirements.
Sure. That, and there's the fact that they did design, and I know that this was even in their docs for what they were aiming for when they were originally designing D3, was they wanted it to be able to run on a wide spectrum of machines. That's something I think is one of Blizzard's core values when they build a game.
That's all Blizzard games.
Yeah, they don't want to go full Crisis on it and have it be the best and brightest, because it's only going to fade that much quicker and be a pain. Less people are going to be able to play it out of the gate.
Right.
Dashiok's mom's machine wouldn't run anymore. Remember that was like a major point for a while back in the day. Okay, so moving on to a couple of other. Putting our tinfoil hats back on. You never took yours off, did you, Tyr?
Oh no, it's always on 24/7. It crinkles at
I lived in Southern California for years and used to really get good Mexican food. I actually have a tinfoil sombrero, so that's a nice touch.
Wow.
I'm not sure what Katniss has.
I got a tinfoil fork. I use it to eat my enemies' tears. Not to be confused with Tyr.
With Tyr's tears. You should use it to eat Tyr's enemies, which would be even better.
I'm okay with that.
So, 2 recent things. We had the news that they were hiring for an unannounced Diablo 3 project, and I saw that news post and dug up more. There was the same announcement from like 4 months before. I saw it on Gamma Sutra, saying hiring a Diablo 3 art director, and then the exact same listing 3 months later says unannounced project, which seemed a little bit weird. But they're definitely hiring an art director for something in the Diablo 3 series, and obviously you don't hire a new art director if you're not making another game, with a different look in theory.
Sure.
So maybe this is Diablo 4 hinting again. Woo woo.
Well, let's give let's give equal time to the other terrifying possibility that they're just getting started on a D3 expansion, which is also possible. God, I hope not, but it's there. They might just be now deciding, oh yeah, we're going to do one of those.
Of course, they could have a lot of the mechanics done and the programming done and the content done and just want to change the look of it, and they need a new art director to supervise that sort of thing.
I guess.
That would seem a little backwards because the art takes so long to do.
I was going to say, I've heard that game development, the majority of the time, is art creation.
That's why, they mentioned that. That's something else Wyatt mentioned on the live stream this week, that they had the snapshotting of your best time on your Greater Rift. That was just added in this new patch. And Wyatt's like, that we had in the game months ago. And the tech guys were like, why aren't we seeing this? We had this in the game. And they were like, we have a bottleneck on the UI. So they didn't actually have that stupid pop-up screen after Greater Rifts that we've all made fun of for 6 months. That actually wasn't. There was nowhere to display the snapshot if it existed. It was in the game long before they could actually show it to us. So, speaking of, maybe the new art director had to come on and tell them why that huge pop-up screen was obnoxious. But apparently, he's not getting the job done because it's still there. But at least it goes away when you hit the spacebar now.
That's right.
But the other tinfoil hat thing to sort of tie into this was that we got data mining, and some guy found a Murloc treasure goblin that's going to be a BlizzCon virtual prize this year. It's got a little BlizzCon 2015 logo in its backpack, I believe, running around. And there was a reskinned version of that weird vomiting troop monster thing, that big worm with the centipede-looking thing that vomits troops over the edge of the levels in Act 3.
Hellbearers.
Up on top of the ramparts and stuff. I'm not sure what that monster's called. I have no idea what it's called.
It's called...
but anyway...
Go ahead.
No, what is it called?
Hellbearer, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's that big centipede thing that vomits out monsters. What I'm talking about. Hellbear. I don't like Hellbears.
Hellbearer.
Isn't the Hellbear what a witch doctor casts? Yeah, I know.
Those are zombies.
But anyway, and there's a reskinned version of that looks like a sea monster. I mean, it looks like it's an underwater aquatic thing. And there's also a new banner that looks very kind of aquatic and ocean themed. And people are saying maybe these are hints that we're going to get Skavos as the level most people seem to expect if we get an Act 6 in Diablo 3 expansion number 2. The home of the Amazons, Greek island-looking thing, sunken underwater temples, jungles, rainforests, ocean, open beaches. And we've debated Skavos in the past. Do you guys think these are our tips and our hints of new things? Would you need a new art director if you're doing a whole new look of the game with bright, sunny beaches and jungles?
And rainbows?
Are you excited? Is all this bullshit just using ourselves?
I mean, it's definitely environments that don't exist in the game currently, so it's not like... I mean, reskinning monsters is one thing, so maybe you wouldn't need like an art director for something like that, but at the same time, creating brand new environments with maybe like brand new traps or brand new buildings or I don't know what, but... some of the new tech that went into Reaper of Souls was them being able to move seamlessly from area to area. Like, I remember that was one of the big things they were talking about with Westmarch.
Yeah, with the roofs dissolved.
Exactly. So, they could be doing something like that where we're going to move, seamlessly through a rainforest and the canopies of trees will cease to exist and phase in and out. I don't know. But in any case, I think it may be reading too much into it, but that's interesting.
That's my job, dude.
Of course. But it's an interesting set of connections to make. I mean, I wouldn't imagine that Murloc thing is certainly for BlizzCon. That'll be like the prize that we get for activating our codes or whatever the things that they hand out.
You wouldn't know, do you? Never got it.
I have no idea.
You're a filthy casual, to be perfectly honest.
That's what it boils down to.
Go ahead.
So you don't think that the Murloc prize, it means there's going to be a sea level in Diablo 3 announced immediately? Because they must actually be the same thing, because Murlocs come from the ocean.
They do, but that would be such like, I mean, one of the big, this is kind of a troll answer, but one of the big things early on was people being like, don't put that WoW stuff in my Diablo. And like, I feel like Murlocs are such a very specifically World of Warcraft thing. Like, to read into that and to say that those will be sea monsters or that will be something that you would see in Skavos seems a bit of a stretch, but it could mean that there is something more coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can probably disregard the Murloc. I don't think the Murloc is, pointing to Skavos because...
Nobody can disregard the Murloc.
Yeah, I know, it's a treasure goblin, so you have to chase it. But no, what I want so hard for this to be a Blizzard troll. I really do. I really want this to be them. They're working hard on D4. They're going to announce it at BlizzCon, and they've got some like artist, in a cubicle in the corner of the basement, and they're just like, "Hey, keep the fan sites entertained for a bit. Just make a skin of a creature that's watery. Just anything will do." And then they just pop it up on their PTR, like, "Here you go, guys. Just go ahead and data mine this." It would make my month if that was what happened. And obviously D4 would be coming out if that was the case, so that would be another reason to be happy.
That'd probably make your month more completely.
Here's something that occurred to me right now, because we are talking about the two things exclusively. So there's D3 expansion or D4. Like, why not both?
You can't.
Because it takes them 9 years to make one game.
Dare to dream. It's too much to ask.
I don't know.
I think one would steal the thunder from the other, or vice versa.
So. Yeah, no, I could see that, and you'd be like fracturing your player base and stuff. I don't know. It occurred to me one time. I think it was maybe like 2 weeks ago. Where I was like, what if there was a point in time where you could actually decide, I'm going to play D4 today, or I'm just going to play the D3 expansion. Like, you had options, which would just be insane.
We kind of do that with...
there was, EverQuest 1 still put out expansion packs once EverQuest 2 was out. They made like 19 expansion packs for EverQuest 1, so it went on forever, and of course, they were working on Diablo 3 while they were working on, Diablo 2 expansion. I mean, they were going on simultaneously with two different teams at Blizzard North, so... Sure. If they are working on Diablo 4, they're doing it right now. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they had a small team working on it, but I would also be shocked if we saw it before, 2020.
Well, that's the other thing that I wanted to mention, is that I'm not certain that we can infer a heck of a lot in terms of this year's BlizzCon on that employment posting, because when you think about how long it takes them to sift through candidates, hire someone, get them in there, get them used to Blizzard culture, I mean... they've talked a number of times on the WoW development team about how difficult it is to bring on new talent. It's a ton of work, and especially in a high-level position, you've got someone who's got to be making these decisions. He needs to be extremely familiar with the content, the community, the look of the game, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, just like Jay Wilson was.
Yeah,
Look how that turned out.
So I think we might be in a situation where, sure, that posting could be very interesting for us down the road on the implications for what that means. But I don't know that necessarily them hiring someone right now, even if they pick someone up within 2 weeks of putting the posting up, that they would have the time to then turn around. He would be there for long enough to guide them in creating new content that they were going to bring out on stage at BlizzCon this year. I mean, that's a really quick turnaround.
Yeah, they posted that ad in March, too, to begin with. So, back when it said unannounced, before it said unannounced title, unannounced project in the Diablo series.
Well, assuming that those are the same posting. They may not be.
Yeah. Well, it was for the same job. I don't think they have two different people doing the same thing, but I mean, maybe they
Well, if they've got one for one project and one for old D3, that would make sense, certainly.
And it's not like they're coding like it looks like Minecraft until they get an art director. I mean, they can do graphics. They obviously have some idea what they're doing. It's just the overall scope and theme of things. They need someone really high level in charge of it.
That's true, but I would think that in terms of an art director, that job specifically, and this is a job I aim to do at some point in my career. That's the kind of thing that you need to be there for the life of the project, because one of your key jobs is maintaining artistic consistency. You're there to watch over the creation of everything to make sure that it all fits the aesthetic that you're looking for so that the game is very cohesive. So I'm a little concerned that maybe that posting is for something, further down the line. Maybe that means we can look forward to a D3 expansion as opposed to a D4. Hopefully they're still working on something, obviously.
I think you have your hat on too tight. Do you have any thoughts on the art direction stuff, Katniss, before we move on to something
I couldn't
else?
say it any better than Tier. He's obviously put way more thought into this one than I have, but I'm hopeful. Honestly, I'm just hopeful for more stuff. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a D3 expansion 2 before we get a D4. And so I think it's...
Well, we're not going to get one after that.
Well, right.
So, unless you're Tier with his multiple games at once. Hey, it's Diablo 5.5. Let's play it instead.
So we'll see. I think it's probably wise to think that D4 is further off in the distance than we want it to be.
I don't think anything is further off than Diablo 4, so that's not the case for me. Speaking of art design in Diablo 4, or something like that, Holy Knight does our fan art stuff on the site all the time, and he's posted a number of times recently, people are doing like science fiction versions of the Diablo stuff. Like, there's one just posted this week. It's in his next update. I don't think it's on the line. It should be it'll be up by the time you see the podcast anyway. Where someone did like an anime mecha, like Gundam Gear kind of thing, versions of, I think it's Tyrael. It was one of the angels.
Of course they did.
So he looks like an anime mecha machine, right? And there's other ones that have been like robotic Diablo and stuff. And I think they look awesome. I mean, we're never going to get like futuristic H.R. Geiger looking anime robot version of Diablo 4, but they actually look really cool when they have like all the spikes and stuff, and they become sort of mechanical or robotic looking.
Wait, guys, get your hats back on. Diablo 40K.
Oh my god! Exactly. I was gonna say this is the perfect time for Flux to go and play heroes, because these could just be skins that are coming for the Diablo characters over there.
There you go.
Exactly, I got right on that. I haven't played Diablo 3 in 2 weeks. I have time for other games? Yes.
Yeah, I did see those. They did look great. Although, am I surprised that they exist? No. Right. It's the kind of fan art people love to make.
It's kind of like when you see fan art of Harry Potter as anime, and you wonder why that doesn't exist already. Like, it so fits into it, the kind of the overdramatic characters, and like the school. So I mean, like every other anime is like set in high school. And like they have the uniforms, and it's like all the characters fit the same kind of archetypes, and there's like big dramatic monsters, and it just obviously J.K. Rowling or whoever else owns the copyrights is like, we don't want to do anime of this, but like a Full Metal Alchemist version of Harry Potter would be just like, it seems like it would fit so perfectly.
I'm pretty sure that anime Harry Potter popped into existence approximately a month and a half before the first Harry Potter book was released. In terms of fan art, like that is just the way DeviantArt works.
Yeah, it should go. It really fits. I mean, just the overall, just the way the story works and the characters.
It's a complete analog to every anime ever made.
And maybe someday, but it's a little bit off topic there. So they have recently announced they have sold on the quarterly earnings report. Well, they talked about how there's like 4 people left on Earth playing World of Warcraft. They also mentioned that Diablo 3 has become has sold 30 million copies. That combines all the console, both versions of the console, the Ultimate Evil Edition, and Diablo 3, and digital sales, and Reaper of Souls. It does not include the 1.2 million copies they gave out to World of Warcraft subscribers. Remember, if you bought a year of WoW, you got Diablo 3 for free?
The annual pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before the game came out. It does not include that, but they have sold over 30 million copies all combined. How many copies of Diablo 3, any of those properties, have you purchased, Katniss? Or how many do you own and how many have you purchased?
Wait, what? How would you...
Well, you got a free one at the launch party, so there's
right.
that.
Okay, 4.
And will there be more coming soon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to. I mean, like, when the console came out, it's obviously really poor money judgment on my part because, like, I don't even use the console stuff anymore. But it's their evil plot that's working so perfectly because when D3 Vanilla was very, like, not fun, basically, when the auction house still existed, when it was hard to get gear, etc., the console version came out with that loot like 1.5 basically, and I was like, oh, I want that. I wasn't planning on buying it, but I was like, man, everyone's posting their images. It looks like so much fun. So of course I bought into that. Then we get 2.0 on the PC, and the expansion comes. So it's like, of course you're going to buy the expansion because it's even better than 1.5 was. And then they make the same exact thing for the PS4, but I'm like, well, now I want to get a PS4 and I want to get this thing to try it out. So I'm terrible about impulse buys, but it all goes to more development of the games I like. So,
and Bobby Kotick's gold-plated toilets in his guest mansion.
Of course.
If you're in the drinking game at home, there's a Bobby Kotick mention. Take a shot. How many copies of Diablo 3 of all those versions have you bought here, and are you depressed by that?
A little bit. I have at current 3. Probably 4 at some point in the future. I don't own a copy of the console game. It looks like a total blast for couch co-op, so I really want to get into it, but I just haven't had a chance. I do have a PS4 now, though, so that's the definitive edition, I think, on the consoles as opposed to the old PS3 one. Mm-hmm. So I ended up purchasing the collector's edition on top of having the annual pass, so I'm counting that as 2, and then obviously a copy of the collector's edition for the expansion. So yeah, I'm at 3. I'm a little behind you there, Leviathan.
Gotta get that console stuff, man.
I gotta buy that console.
Yeah, well, once you get the PS4, you guys will be in a tie. So I'm wondering if I remember back in the Diablo 2 days, you would see people posting in the forums they bought like 10 copies of the game because they keep getting their CD keys banned. I don't think that's been an issue with Diablo 3 as much, at least not for you guys. You're not in a high-ranking streaming clan, so you're not running a bot 24/7, so you haven't gotten banned yet, right, Katniss? Well, maybe someday soon.
Things to aspire to, right?
Exactly. One day you can only hope. So I guess I should answer the question, even though my answer... I have 2, and I bought one of them, so it's kind of a sad story. I did buy the Diablo 2 Collector's Edition. Sorry, Diablo 3 Collector's Edition.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of Diablo 2s lying around here, though, so I guess that counts. And I have at least 2 copies of Diablo 1, so... I have more of the old school stuff.
Yeah, D3 Collector's Edition was easily, I think, the best Collector's Edition they've done in probably 10 years. With that little statuette Diablo skull and the USB stick that had D2 on it, that was pretty cool.
It's super awesome.
Unfortunately, not Diablo 1, which is like impossible to play now.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer.
So many people have no CD drives, and you can't like buy it digitally online. It's hard to even come by.
Walk,
so
don't run.
It's literally hard to play it.
Box.
Even if you want to, it's hard to play it. Yeah, and I got my Reaper of Souls copy free at the launch party, so I didn't buy Reaper of Souls, so I'm a bad person. And I don't have a console because I'm old, so go.
So
I don't have a couch
I did want to
either.
point out one comparison you made in this in the article on the Diablo2.net site. You pointed out the difference in sales numbers between D3 at 30 million and the latest reports on World of Warcraft at something like 14 million. I did want to point out, and I'm correcting you here, that those numbers are from 2013 and probably not nearly as accurate as we'd like, especially since I don't believe that they're including, when they're counting those games, they're not including expansions from what I looked at in the note that was in the Wikipedia article. So I think it's pretty safe to say that WoW has probably sold a good number more copies than that 14 million, probably more than D3 would be my guess.
So why do they count expansions in the Diablo 3 total but not in the WoW total?
I mean, I don't know. The Blizzard's numbers are always all over the place, right? Like they don't put out a consistent set of data metrics for everything once a year or whatever. They just put out numbers when they want to. The other thing I'll point to is just the fact that at their peak, they had 12 million active players, and the game is known for a lot of churn. So,
and that was like 3 expansions in, right?
4. That was at the launch of Cataclysm.
So that's 48 million right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ton. If you count it that way. The other thing is, think about, they've already said to us, I think this was about a year ago, that more people have quit World of Warcraft than are currently playing it. And I think they said that when the game was about 8 or 9 million players, by a large number. So they have a lot of churn, people coming in, people leaving. So I think it's safe to say they probably sold, I would estimate 35 or 40 million copies in the game.
Are you guys surprised we've never seen a World of Warcraft 2?
No.
I mean, so many of these MMORPGs, there's a Guild Wars 2, there's an EverQuest 2. I mean, lots of these big ones do expansions. They keep doing expansions of the first game and churn out, MMO 2. So why not?
I think you only need a 2 if your 1 gets a bad rep, in a way. Like, I think once it goes too south, I don't know, you could almost make the case for it now with the way that Warlords of Draenor was received and how it eventually played out. It could have been like, oh, it's time to reboot. But I think World of Warcraft at this point is so old, they would never go that route. They would either do something like they were supposed to with, I can't even remember the name of it anymore, that MMORPG that they thought they were going to make, but then didn't make, and then turned out to be... Yeah, Titan. I just don't think, at least right now, that the MMORPG market is something that they are willing to keep investing in. I feel they'll ride WoW until it's officially dead and gone, and I don't even know if it ever will be. But when you think about Final Fantasy XIV, right? They didn't necessarily name it Final Fantasy XIV-2, but they renamed it Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, because they had to actually just trash what they had originally, because it was that bad and people were that upset.
Such a nightmare.
Yeah. So I feel like whenever you want to make a clear distinction, this is not the same product that you had previously, that's when you go to the different title.
Yeah. I do have to say, I think I disagree with you a little bit on that. I think that this is the same. You can answer this question the same way you answer, well, will WoW ever go free to play? And I think the answer on that, as we've seen with a number of MMOs, is some pencil-pushing, math guy in, again, a basement, cubicle in Blizzard has a graph, and it shows, okay, when these lines intersect, i.e. the number of WoW subs and the amount of money that they're making, compared to the amount of money that they would project they would make if they went free to play and added a freemium model, that's the point at which we switch over. I think that is probably the point at which we see a WoW 2 at least begin development. They'll probably want to do a Warcraft 4 in terms of an RTS in between, which I think would be a wise choice because it lets them reset and build additional lore. One of the problems with WoW is that they constantly chew through villains and lore that they've created in the RTS, and it's very difficult to build lore in an MMO. So I think we'll probably see the numbers will at some point, and it may be very far in the future, drop, say, below 1 million. At that point, they'll say, okay, we're not making a heck of a lot of money on this. Let's do Warcraft 4, and then we'll go ahead and get started on a WoW 2, at which point people's nostalgia meters will be off the charts because they won't have been playing for 5 or 6 years, and they'll be able to get those people.
And the
back.
third WoW movie will be coming out by then, so that'll be.
God, I hope so. That thing it's either going to do really well because it's actually decent and one of the first and only video game adaptation movies that's ever good, or it's going to tank. So if they do 3 of them, pretty good chance at that point we would say that the movie was okay.
That's.
Yeah, I did a post on video game movies some months ago, and it was like, there's never been a good one. By critical review.
Yeah, some people like Prince of Persia.
There's literally never been a well-reviewed video game movie.
But nothing that was like, oh wow, this is great.
You said it.
But
multiple times, yeah.
You were going to jump in.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to think about real quick was, a lot of people have been saying, what happens to the StarCraft 2 people after Legacy of the Void comes out? Because
they make StarCraft 4.
But it's those are the RTS people at Blizzard, and as far as we know, they're unannounced teams or whatever have you. But, Legacy of the Void is supposed to be the third and final chapter of StarCraft 2. It wraps everything up, ties it in a bow, puts a knot on it, etc. So at that point, kind of tying into your idea, Tier, they now have free people ready to do the next RTS. Like, wouldn't that be a prime opportunity to say, all right, let's do the Warcraft 4 thing? Like, people are clamoring for it still, so...
Yeah, and there was actually an interview just a couple weeks ago, I think, where one of the developers, was asked, what do you think about a Warcraft 4? Or he may have even brought it up himself. And he said, oh, yeah, we think we might at some point, maybe. And it's like, I'm sure that there was some PR rep behind him, like, silently screaming, like, no.
I think that's all planned. There's like, can we start hitting about Warcraft 4? Sure we can. Okay, go for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise the bombs in their brains explode, so. You mentioned earlier how it takes a while for a developer or a high-level person to get integrated into the Blizzard culture. And my thought, of course, was it also takes some time for the hair to grow back over the sutures in their skulls. So
yeah, they put that little chip in so that if they ever, reveal information...
Well, the bomb in their brain, yeah. It takes a little while to integrate that. You get used to it. It's kind of an echoing sound you hear at first, and then a clicking.
And it's not buzz in your ears.
So a final topic I have is Season 4 plans. Anything else you guys want to throw in we never got into here? Any current burning issues?
Just thoughts from...
We're talking about World of Warcraft 2 at this point. We're not exactly on topic here, but go ahead,
just thoughts from the PTR lately. I mean, it's clear that it's winding down at this point. Like you've been pointing out, Flux, on DiabloII.net. A lot of the fixes at this point are really minor, minuscule, tying things up at this point. So... I guess my question to you guys is, are we satisfied with all the changes that we've seen, assuming that there are no other big changes coming? Like, are the witch doctors in a place where they need to be, where they will be competitive? Are monks going to be okay now that, like, half their stuff got nerfed? Like, how do we feel about what's coming up?
Well, you asked two questions there. Do we think it's balanced, and are we okay with it? If witch doctors and monks suck, I'm okay with that, so yes. Do I think it's balanced? Probably not. We're going to have... what's his face? I can't think of his Nerdwords is going to pop on here for a minute, probably right at the end, maybe just with me, because he wants to rant about some of the wizard stuff. He hates the way the Veers set works now, and he's our resident wizard expert, so he's obviously not ready for it. You've been playing. You're asking me questions about characters I haven't played yet. Have you played any of those characters, Tier? Do you have an opinion? I'm sure you've got some Crusader thoughts.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've actually played a little bit of each of those. I do think the Witch Doctor is still in a little bit of trouble. I feel like one of their issues is that they haven't built a set really that gives the Witch Doctor a kind of a speedy, mobility-focused rotation. That's one of the things that data miners and people who really focus on builds tend to stress. They really try to get a build that is quick at clearing things. I mean, obviously, you can do a ton of damage if you're standing still, but it's not going to help you a whole ton, in terms of trying to get through a greater rift. So I think they have an issue there where their toolkit thus far has not lent itself to, these quick clear, like, constantly whirlwinding barbarians, charging monks, all this kind of stuff.
Italian
exactly. I mean, basically all of the top builds right now for any of the classes involve not just extreme DPS, but a very high mobility component, and they don't have that. I think that's going to be a major problem, even if they did have the damage, which by all accounts they seem like they still kind of don't. They're a little better, but not all that great. I'll be interested to see what Leviathan says about the Crusader, because I mained Crusader in Season 3, and I actually really liked playing those. I haven't had a heck of a lot of chance to play my Crusader on PTR, but they seemed, kind of fun, especially if you like Hammerdins.
Definitely. So I feel like the way to look at it is from two different points of view. If you're there for the nostalgia, this set captures it completely, right? Like, the hammers are there, they're spammed out, it's super fast. It has a really fun playstyle to it when you're just looking at, oh man, there's so many hammers on screen, I'm doing things. But execution-wise, I feel like it's a very similar story to the one you just told. Like, you need to be able to do damage and also move at the same time. That's why the best, performers are seven-sided striking monks who can, A, skip packs, first of all, and then B, just move around. They're doing damage as they move. And you see the same caveat with the demon hunters that are whirling, the barbs that are whirling. Like, that is the thing that you need to be able to do for your class to be the most successful inside Greater Rifts. And it's tough because the old stuff that Crusaders could do, when you look at the Condemned set especially, that was something that was very mobile, and it was doing damage without interrupting. Like, there was no cast animation that stopped you in order to do it. And that's one of the tough things with Blessed Hammer, is that it has a very distinct cast animation. So you stop, you throw hammers out, then you move, and people are actually using stutter stepping techniques to integrate hexing pants into the build. But I think it's going to reach a point where, like, the damage output is still great, but you're just not able to quickly move at the same speed other classes can, so you just won't be able to keep up. Like, one of the issues I'm thinking about right now is I love Conquest, and it's a very limited thing. It's the kind of thing that you need to, like, be there for the first 2 weeks of the season super hard and farming efficiently, because, you know, it's a limited amount of spots. If your class can't farm as fast as the other classes, then you're already at a disadvantage just by picking that class if you care enough about the Conquest. So it's almost like, do I roll Bard first and get all the Conquests and then play the class I want to play? Like, everyone should be able to do the same thing, but we're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I actually played a Crusader build a long time ago in non-seasonal that was a kind of a starter build, fire-based hammers. And it was kind of unsatisfying, which is what I've heard about the hammer build now. Is, you know, it's okay, it does alright damage if you're standing still, but it's a lot of like, okay, I'm going to stop here, there's going to be a big old group of mobs, and I'm just going to click this button until a whole bunch of little things fly out and everything dies, you know, and then I'll move on. It's a little less exciting than, you know, playing a monk where you're dashing around everywhere.
Exactly. I mean, it would be great if there was also another button inside of that set that said, pull everything on the screen to your central location, you know, because if you can create huge pockets of density, that's where that set operates the best. And I feel like that's kind of the intention of having Provoke come off cooldown super quickly, because the more mobs are around, the more you get a benefit from that. And there's also that interplay with the bracers not working when you have a ton of mobs around you. So it's kind of like the whole triumvirate of throwing out the hammers, using your Provoke, using your Blessed Hammer to keep your defenses up while everything is surrounding you, hitting you, and eventually you clear out that huge area. But so often you don't get, you know, those levels of density inside the Greater Rifts. It's better than it has been in the past, but...
Well, that's going to be okay, though, because you can just Kanai's Cube Rakers, right? No big deal.
The whole set.
Yeah, just the whole set. You'll just do the whole set in one slot from another class. It'll be all right.
That's the Diablo 4 Raker stuff, right? Kanai's Cube. That's funny. I mean, you mentioned that classes should all have the same thing, and of course, we'd like them to be equivalent. But I remember asking exactly that question about. I think it was about death cheating passives. I asked it to Wyatt at BlizzCon like 2 years ago, and he was like, you know, he gave us. I think it was actually that was not Blizz. It was a podcast I did with him, and he was like, well, you know, it's nice if classes have some things the same, but it's also nice if they have some things that are different. And of course, in this case, the difference is some classes have really super fast moving builds that kill everything on the screen instantly, and other ones don't. And it's kind of hard not to have that if you're a class that doesn't. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a little more difficult to say than something else you don't have that's the same. And I remember talking about this like 2 patches ago. We were like, okay, the most popular barbarian build ever is now, and it's spin to win, it goes super fast. The most popular Demon Hunter build ever now is Natalia's, and it goes super fast and kills everything. And there were, you know, it was a super popular with the first instance of the wizard teleporting with the ether wand and instantly killing everything on the screen super fast. Okay, that's the most popular wizard build. It's funny how all the most popular builds are the ones that move super fast and kill everything in the entire screen. And then so, like, you know, you don't want every class in the game to have the same thing, but then again, if that's what everybody likes the best, and then they think that Crusaders and Witch Doctors are no fun because they don't have it.
Yeah, I think it's a difference between what's play style and what's a utility. You know, it's okay to say, okay, well, we don't want to give Crusaders a movement skill like Spirit Walk that lets them go through walls. There's a big difference, I think, between that and saying, well, we want Witch Doctors not to have access to a faster play style. That's harder to justify.
And I mean, it's if you think about that statement that you bring up specifically, it's an outdated one because that statement existed before Greater Rifts existed. And I think once you bring Greater Rifts inside the conversation, then you have to think about parity. And Tyr makes a great point, like, everyone shouldn't be able to teleport, right? Like, we don't want Enigma 2.0. But at the same time, everyone should have the potential to move as quickly. So that's why you see the Manajuma's set rework to give Witch Doctors crazy movement speed through the Hex Chicken thing. We need more things like that between all the classes so that they're still using the flavor of the class. It's still a hex spell, it's still the steed charge for the Crusader, it's still Volt for the Demon Hunter, but it accomplishes the same goal of essentially creating a speedy thing that you can do. And I think once we see builds like that emerge for every class, I mean, it's the same, sorry, I'm like jumping all over the place, but when you brought up the cheat death passive thing, how long were Barbs way down in Greater Rift? They were doing like 35 in Season 1, and that was like the pinnacle, because they couldn't cheat death that hard in Hardcore, or at all, in Hardcore. So they couldn't push as aggressively as, a Crusader with 2 basic cheat death ways to get out of death. So when you have Greater Rift, there needs to be a thought towards parity, and it means that you might have to change some of the design goals you previously had.
I'm sure they get right on that. It's the how you don't want all the characters just to play the same, but there are certain things that you want. And you mentioned that the reworked Witch Doctor set. They keep sort of just tacking on like random faster run options for him. Like one of the rune effects for, I think, there's mongrels or one of those things. Like if you have nothing else near you, suddenly you're really, really fast for a while. That's one of the passives, right? They added that to one of the passives for some of the Witch Doctor. If there's no monsters near you for an X distance, you get like super fast movement speed. It just seems really kind of like jerry-rigged, We're just going to tack on this thing to make the Witch Doctor move a little faster when no one else can, just to sort of make up for every other class having a much better movement skill than he does.
Well, and this is one of, I think, my few major gripes with Blizzard in terms of how they're developing the game right now, is the fact that there are times when I see Blizzard developers, and I've seen it with World of Warcraft, I've seen it with StarCraft, I've seen it with this, there are priorities they don't want to hold themselves to. And I think in World of Warcraft, one of those is achieving parity between PvP and PvE. In Diablo, it's achieving parity between...
Achieving PvP at all.
That, and it's also achieving parity between the different classes. Because they have this convenient excuse of saying, well, your leaderboards, they don't really tie in. They're different. Every class has their own leaderboard. And while that's true, you also have a multiplayer game where people are interacting with each other. You have, just the psychological effect of, if I'm playing a Witch Doctor, say I'm not very hardcore at the game, I'm playing a Witch Doctor, a friend of mine also picked up the game recently, he's playing a Barbarian, and I want to feel like, I'm keeping up with him. Well, I'm not,
Yeah.
And that makes me have less fun because I feel like I'm being, screwed over by the class that I chose to play because I like the lore. So it's frustrating to see them kind of hint at it. They always they're like, well, we'd like to have them, but it's not really a priority for us to. And it's like, guys, could you just commit, please? Like, just do it, because it is important. And we've been talking about how it's important for years. So please, just get on it.
Well, they just say they want the GRs to be within like 1 or 2 of each other. They don't care. They're not going to try to make them exactly the same. That'll be too much micromanaging.
No, and I agree with that. But when you've got a gap of 5 or 6, or 10, it's a legitimate issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we have. But generally, I did a post recently about people were all complaining that the Greater Rifts weren't going to be archived and locked in on the Era ones when the season ended, and Blizzard corrected that and said actually they are. It was old info. But people were all complaining about that, and I went and looked at the top Greater Rift clears for seasonal versus non-seasonal right now in Season 3 or Era 3. And there were some pretty big gaps for number 1, and they were a little smaller at 10, and by number 100 they were very little difference, or identical, between seasonal and non-seasonal. So there are a few outlier players and, guilds and clans who are all, seasonal and seem to be skewing it a little bit higher. But if you took an overall average of 1 to 1,000, or you look at the 500th place, they're pretty much the same. So I wonder, to some extent, there are certain classes that are better, 3-4 Greater Rifts higher at number 1, but some of those are just because 1 or 2 players are like 2 or 3 Greater Rifts ahead of everybody else on Earth, right?
Yeah, that's...
And if you go down to number 100 or 500 or 1,000, then there's a lot less of a space. Maybe that's what Blizzard's looking at, is they're looking at the overall averages instead of just like the top of the board.
Right, so density is important. Like, if you have a ton of barbarians...
Blizzard is very dense, that is correct.
Stop. Like, the concentration, I'll use a different word on you, haha. The concentration of players at certain Greater Rifts is very important as well, too, because if you have 50 barbarians that have all cleared 55, but you have one Crusader that's cleared 55 and another that's cleared 53, and then 10 others behind them at 50. That's not the same. Those are just a couple of dudes who maybe got lucky with drops or with greater rifts, because there's still variance between both of those things.
Or Stone Singer, back when he was
still
around.
Stone Singer. By the way, did you know that some people pronounce it Stone Singer? That blew my mind.
What?
People pronounce it Ross, and they should be rounded up and put into camps. So,
well, there's that's a good point to make too. Two things. One is, I think people on podcasts specifically, folks like us, have a tendency to overestimate the skills of your average player. Your average player probably plays up through, just once through the exactly. Or I remember.
Elio's too hard, man.
Back when we had the older difficulty system, people would be like, "Yeah, I played through the first 2 levels of difficulty. I was done." So there's that, and then there's the other thing, and this happens in World of Warcraft as well, where you have a movement of the top, most talented players to what's considered to be the most viable class and spec. So you have an experience and an ability gap that accrues. Where you have one spec that's performing, quote-unquote, better, and even if Blizzard runs sims and, they have more tools than we do for this kind of stuff, they may say, well, we've kind of mapped out a better way to do this. And it did actually happen. I think it happened in World of Warcraft with Frost DKs and Unholy DKs. They said the other spec, the Unholy spec, was actually better, but Frost was, for a long time, considered higher DPS. And one of the reasons that was because people did not play the Unholy spec when they had that high level of ability. They just assumed they needed to be over at Frost to be putting out the most damage. So it can happen here too. You can have more of your players who are more talented, more capable, more dedicated move to a class simply because they feel like the class is better. And then you have a much different pool of players playing Witch Doctors. With a lower skill set. And that can actually drop the numbers on greater rifts as far as what the top and the averages are.
Well, that's what I thought when Katniss started. You mentioned the density of players, and I remember a certain podcast guest who usually plays Crusaders and suddenly was playing a Barbarian in a recent season, along with every single other person on Battle.net. The start of I guess it was 2.2, right, where suddenly everybody was a Barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, they were making jokes about how 85% of the I think I brought up on a podcast. We had some numbers about how 80%. There was a conquest to clear GR50 or something like that, and 87% of people who had done it were barbarians. And I mentioned that on the podcast like it was a damning fact. And some guests 87% of all players are barbarians. I'm like, oh, I guess you got a point there. So that does happen from patch to patch. Remember at the start of Season 3, everybody was suddenly playing a monk because Gungo gear, right? Everyone's like, okay, I can do Exploding Palm and it's awesome. And suddenly there was I kept mentioning at the start of the season in Hardcore in the clan, it was like you were in a monastery. All you would see is, so-and-so's monk has died after 7 hours and 14 minutes. It was just the monastery burial ground, because everybody was playing monks, and therefore, just inevitably, the ones who didn't die were moving into higher levels than wizards or witch doctors or whatever. Just by, if there's a million people trying to do the same thing, one of them's going to get through, right?
That's a great point.
Are you guys planning Season 4? I believe it's starting on the 28th of this month, which is still, a week and a half from now. What is it? It's 2 weeks. Today's the 14th, so we've got a while. We've got a week until Season 3 ends, and then you've got your 5-day carryover or whatever, and then Season 4 starts on the Friday. So exactly 2 weeks. It's Friday night. So in 14 days, you will be 3 hours into Season 4. Are you going to launch Season 4, Tyr? I know you are, Katniss, so you can answer second. Do you do seasonal stuff, Tyr? Do you have it all planned out? Are you going to play a new class? What is your goal for Season 4?
I think I am going to play a different class, at least to start with. I've played a different class in each each season thus far.
I'm like, wait, what? You've got secret seasons? You've got secret expansions, man.
I've played it.
You're playing an Amazon right now, aren't you?
Thus far, I've done a monk, wizard, and a crusader this season. So I may give the barb a shot. For one of the reasons is that, I hope that a little bit of the barb fervor will have worn off, so I'll just kind of be me doing my thing. As far as specific plans, I'm going to take off work, or, I'm going to buy 1 million Cheetos. No, I don't tend to do that, but I'll be playing, and I think it's going to be, like each season before it, the best season yet, so I'm excited to see how it turns out.
I already have 1 million Cheetos.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got to keep those just in supply, stocked.
I got to get in shape for
Yeah, I
BlizzCon.
mean, you eat about 500,000, and then you go out and buy another 500,000. That's how that works.
I'm actually using this packing material for my imminent move. I'm moving in 2 days, so I'm actually using those to muffle the impact of my mini copies of Reaper of Souls.
Yeah, I use them as insulation for my gaming rig. Just stuff them in there, just in the case.
Now they're all kind of orange and cheesy flavored, but that's even better. Reminds me of Jay Wilson. So, Katniss, what is your plans for Season 4? Are you going to forsake your Crusader, or are you going back to the Crusader?
Oh, man, I'm going to play Crusader, but I'm going to grit my teeth while I do it, at least for the first, few weeks of the season, because I know it's going to take me a lot longer to gear up compared to other classes. And the Crusader is one of those classes, too, where they're so gear-dependent. CDR matters so much, and getting perfect slots on everything. It's tough to be a Crusader. But without complaining, I'm really excited for the new set. I do think it's going to be a nice change of pace for them, especially coming out of the Shield Bash roll-in stuff, which I wasn't a huge fan of personally, so I'm looking forward to doing Blessed Hammer. And my goal is to, knock out all the conquests as fast as possible, so after I do that, then I'll relax a little bit.
I was going to mention this earlier when talking about, speed characters and such, but we haven't even mentioned Kanai's Cube and the fact that you have to do, 25 bounties a game to get all these materials, basically. And it's enormously, as anybody who's done a lot of bounty running realizes, bounties are 85% movement speed, Especially now that the idiot arrow pops up after 1 minute, so you don't run around an area for 5 minutes. You can just almost sit on... I've occasionally had ones when you're in Act 5, you get that giant swamp level or something. You just kind of stay near the waypoint for a minute and just hope to kill a couple of elites.
It's faster.
Because you can take longer. Yeah, if you go a minute in the wrong direction, it's it takes you longer to get back to the waypoint than you would have saved by guessing right in the first place.
I love that the arrow still occurs when you're in town. The arrow is totally my sandwich friend, because if I get one that's really nasty, I'm out in the Dulgar Oasis or whatever, I'll just port to town and then go make a sandwich. When I come back, I've got an arrow. Just go where I want to go.
There you are. You're already there. Yeah, so the 1 minute arrow makes it a huge difference, and obviously split farming is going to be a huge thing. But I mean, movement speed on the PTR especially, it was just such a huge difference if you had a lot of movement speed to get these stupid materials you need from all these these Heraldric caches in every act.
For sure.
And some of these things are damn big. I mean, the Act 5 ones are just ridiculous. And even if you get the arrow sometimes, you get the West March or the Burning West March versions, the arrow's pointing up to the left, and it's this total serpentine maze. It doesn't tell you shit on which way to go. You could go down to the right, and it'll wind back around eventually. So being able to really zoom along at 120% movement speed or whatever is just an enormous difference in getting these materials, especially early in the season when you're trying to get your first powers in Kanai's Cube.
It makes a difference too if your movement speed is based on resource or cooldown. So a Demon Hunter can spam out vaults and then use something like preparation to get the discipline back, or if you're using the Donetta set, switch over to the one that gets you the hatred back. But if you're locked into a cooldown like Steed Charge, for instance, then unless you have that perfect CDR for it, which is pretty hard to come by without using a Swift Mount, and then if you're using a Swift Mount, you have low DPS. You can tell I'm a little bitter about it, but
this is you not complaining about Crusaders, right?
Exactly that, correct. So
where you're I remember earlier you complained for a minute straight. You're not to complain about Crusaders though. I'm too late, dude.
But yeah, no, it's easily going to be super important to have a really strong speed farming set for bounties. And I think for the most part, people will probably do this on T7 because, as far as I know, they haven't changed the amount of rewards for T7 through T10 from bounties. So you just get the 8 if you do the bonus.
That makes sense.
You do get 2 legendary items. Yeah, you get the same amount of materials. You do get 2 legendary items pretty often. So if you're trying to farm Rorgs or something, it does help a lot to be on T9 or T10.
I suppose.
You don't get them all the time, but you get them fairly often.
There'll be a point at which everyone will just be at that power level anyway.
Yeah, that's the first week of the season. That's all that matters, But of course, we're also saying this, as you mentioned earlier, Tier. This is very first world problems. Lots of people play the game 2 hours a week and just gradually move up to this stuff.
Yeah, they don't even see this.
I have to work Friday night and Saturday and Sunday all day when the season starts, which makes 4 for 4 now. Thank you, Blizzard. There's at least 2 weekends a month I'm not working usually, or
maybe
at least
it's
one.
4 for 4
every
your
single
business.
Season starts.
Maybe you should be mad at them.
Yeah, they're planning ahead that way. Actually, I'll be switching jobs on Monday, so that may not be the case anymore. It'll be even worse, actually. I'm working longer hours starting soon. But anyway, I have never gotten to rush a season on the first weekend yet. I'm always like, it's like Monday afternoon, I finally get to play. I'm like level 7. Everybody in the clan is like Paragon 117. I'm like, well, goddamn it, Like, how come at the little kids' table at Thanksgiving, everyone else is getting the good food? I mean, like chicken McNuggets. So that will happen again for me. Are you guys rushing the first night? If you planned ahead, you don't have your million Cheetos ready, but are you going to go there?
No, probably not. Have
you in the past?
I have done it once. I did it with season 2, and that was a lot of fun. But no, not since. I mean, I play a lot of Blizzard games, so I kind of have to split my time, and then also I have a life and a family and such. So
okay,
yeah, I'm sorry. Although I did want to say, you heard it here first.
Banished.
Diablo 4. It's a dual-stick shooter. You never have to stop moving. You just fire things all the time.
Everyone gets movement DPS.
Diablo 4.
You guys remember Robotron?
Geometry Wars of Heaven and Hell. I don't know.
So how about you, Katniss? Opening night?
Yeah, Nineball and I have our tradition of staying up until 70, so we're doing that. We've done it for the past 3 seasons, so this one will be no different.
And you guys are East Coast, so it actually starts later.
Yeah, it's a grind. We're usually up until like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Although the time has actually been getting shorter and shorter with I guess maybe we're getting better at it because strategies are being developed season to season on how to best level up. But also, there's just power creep in quotes for getting from 1 to 70 now too, because I don't know if you want to dig into this, but without needing keys for rifts, you can actually go into rifts from level 1, and you're getting the experience bonus that you get from being inside of those, and then also with being in a party, and then you're also getting good gear while you're inside of there. So I imagine it's actually going to be the fastest yet for 70.
Yeah, and then once you get to 70 and you get Kanai's Cube, then if you get a couple of good legendary items quickly, that makes a gigantic difference. I mean, just
yeah, I'm sure.
Every
season's going to be
you just start every other. Really, the only bottleneck is death rest anymore. So materials are much easier to get. You can get gems much more easily now with the conversion recipes. So a lot of the stuff you used to have to do at the start of the season, like using a broken crown with some crappy gem you didn't want just because you needed more of that gem. Obviously, that was an issue for monks and demon hunters, especially. It's like, ooh, I have gold find in my helm now. Awesome,
right?
Gold find. And now with the cube recipe, you can just get any gem you want and then just convert them to what you do want. So
yeah.
And the Kanai's Cube, of course. Once you get a couple of good, you just get a convention, just some crappy convention of elements, or even like a Nagel ring. When you first get to 70, Nagel ring is outrageous. I mean, it's outrageous for leveling because the little exploding guys are so great, but I use that for like Paragon 50 on season 4 on the PTR both times.
Oh.
Because you're getting like 28 million for explosion from the Nagel ring guys, and your regular crits are like 2 million. When you have crappy gear.
It's awesome.
And you don't have to wear the ring, so just any one you find them at level 10, you get to level 7, you put it in the cube, bang, you're rolling. So any final thoughts, guys? You're ready for you're tired of season 3, you're tired of the PTR, you're ready for season 4 and Diablo 4 with Jay Wilson at BlizzCon, yes?
Yeah. I signed my name to it.
That's we're gonna double it all.
Jay, give me some dual stick shooter action. I want it.
That'll be the console version where you have 2 thumb pads.
Maybe Diablo 4 be console only. What?
Oh my
God!
Is, you would.
Well, no piracy that way.
They would set fire to Blizzard headquarters. It would happen.
Okay. Thank you for listening to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at DiabloWingGamers.com.
You did
God
it
damn it. At DiabloI.net. And you should click our ads on iTunes or whatever. I hate that we fill in podcasts and it's always like 5 minutes of like you should go subscribe to us and you always just stop listening to it, like all of our listeners just did. But they can't because they have to listen to us. And what do we say at the end?
Moo. A moo 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 moo.
Okay, welcome back to the show. This is our bonus content. 9 words, nerd words, wanted to come on here and rant about how awesome the wizard sets are in the new PTR. He loves the new sets. That they're totally perfectly balanced, and he just cannot believe how well this game is made for wizards right now. Is that correct?
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, I do enjoy the game, but no, it's not why.
So you're giving up on the wizard class? You're going to play Crusaders only in Season 4?
No, I'm still going to play wizard. I've been doing a lot of testing on the PTR with the new Veer set, and it's just a really strange set that's super misleading. So
Yeah, so tell us what it does for our people who don't play the wizard.
Okay, so and let me pull up the exact, I don't want to screw up the exact set bonuses, but for people who haven't played wizard before and haven't played the Veer set because it's awful and has been for a long time, the Veer set for the wizard is basically the Archon set. It empowers Archon so it's a usable, hopefully, mechanic. The problem is that the Veer set is built really strangely. So the 2-piece set bonus is a pretty cool set bonus. It adds... it gives all the runes for Archon. The 4-piece set bonus makes it to where for every stack of Archon you have, you gain 1% armor, resistance, and attack speed. And then the 6-piece set bonus... Actually, let me pull that up real quick.
They keep changing this. Initially, like you got like 50 sets to start with, which sounded really weird.
Well, that was with the belt. So that's actually the key here. The biggest problem that Veer set has is that it's locked into too many pieces. So you have 6-piece Veers, and there's only 6 pieces. So you don't have a 7th piece optional to kind of mix and match. So you have to wear helm, shoulders, chest, pants, boots, gloves. So all armor, right? Which leaves you ring slots, belt slot, and bracer slot. And then, of course, amulet. So the problem that you have is that with the there's now a seasonal belt called Fazula's Infinite Rage or something, I think. It's Fazula's belt, but it makes it to where you start with, it was 50 stacks of Archon, and now it's been nerfed down to 15 to 20 stacks. Now what Archon stacks do for people that don't know is when in Archon mode, every enemy you kill gives you a stack of Archon. And that adds 6% damage, basically, as of right now with no set bonuses. So when you add Veers, now for every stack of Archon...
It used to add to your duration, right? And you could keep it going forever in like really crowded areas. That was like in D3V.
Back in the day. Yeah, back in D3V. That's why everyone.
That's when I last played a wizard, so that's totally obsolete information now, right?
Right. Yes.
That was when I last played a wizard.
That was the way it was back in the day.
Yeah.
See, they changed it in 2.0 to make it to where the bonuses just, or the stacks gave you damage bonuses instead. So you were just getting 20 seconds of Archon. That was it. So then, it became pretty much useless because outside of Archon, you were, a wet noodle. You couldn't do any damage and you died a lot. So it was pretty pointless. But the problem with this set right now is that you have 6-piece Veers, right? But then they also redesigned Shantoto's set, which is a wand and offhand combo where the 2-piece set bonus makes it to where now when you enter Archon mode, you pulse a wave of destruction, which is basically just like the spell Wave of Force. It just pulses at a base 1 attack per second. You cannot alter it with your attack speed whatsoever. But the Shantotos can stack up to 20 times for every time you do damage outside of Archon with a spender, right? So essentially, when you're not in Archon mode, you do a bunch of damage with a bunch of spenders like Blizzard or Arcane Torrent, gain up to 20 Shantoto stacks, which is the limit, and then you enter Archon mode, so that you're now pulsing for 7,000% weapon damage in a 30-yard radius, which is really powerful, really cool. In fact, it's so powerful that is your damage. You do absolutely no damage almost in Archon mode because the Wave of Destruction either kills everything before it gets to you or is doing way more damage than you're capable of doing. The problem with the set is that the 4-piece set bonus boosts attack speed, armor, and resistances for all of your stacks. The problem is that attack speed doesn't actually affect Archon whatsoever. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't affect your Wave of Destruction, which is where your damage is coming from. It's a base 1 attack per second. It does make you attack faster, but that's in melee range. If you've got a wave hitting 30 yards out at 7,000% weapon damage, by the time you get to things, they're usually not needing punched anyways. Now, when you get to the higher difficulties, you actually do get to where you're in melee range and that attack speed can help. The problem is that you're then in such a close range that you don't have the survivability. So then you switch and you have to start using Halo of Arliss with Ancient Parthenon Defenders even to be able to survive. So now you're looking at 6-piece Veer set, right, plus the 2-piece Shantoto set, which is, it's made for Archon. That's all of your damage. Without that set, it's completely useless. Archon, the whole set, the spell, everything is useless without Shantotos right now. And then you need the survivability and then the seasonal belt. So literally now the only choice you have are rings and amulet, and really only one ring because you have to use the Halo, which makes the Frost Nova proc when you get hit. So the set that was a 6-piece set is already turning into an 8 to 10 to 12-piece set that's mandatory, to the point to where, like on PTR, with a 2,000% legendary find, it's really easy to build because you can find this stuff super fast. But on live, when this season goes live, I anticipate it being a pretty long haul to get this built. And once you do, it still takes a lot of moving parts to work. So you'll be sitting on 8 pieces and still not wear it until you get the full set to be able to put it on. So it's one of those things to where Wizards are in a really weird spot because this is also topping out higher than anything else on the leaderboards currently. So even though it's incredibly awkward and wonky and a little poor on the design philosophy, it still does enough damage at the high end that's what's competitive. That's what the top in the world, at least right now on the PTR, we're doing, which is basically going to pigeonhole everyone into the same exact set pretty much across the board, which, of course, happens at the top end way late in the season. The problem is that everything that's going on with this Veer set just feels so backwards. The attack speed boosting and attack speed not actually helping your character, the survivability being so low that you need these extra little add-ons. It's just, for a set to be based around a power skill, the way Wrath of the Berserker is for the Barb, and the way a Cons is for Crusader, even though that's a little bit behind, it feels incredibly more complicated than it needed to be. And it's frustrating. It's super frustrating because we're going to be stuck with a very similar builds across the board.
What about Kanai's Cube?
See, the problem with the Cube is, again, the same thing. You have basically two choices for weapon, Furnace or Shard of Hate. Now, luckily, Shard of Hate is actually a pretty cool option because at that fast attack speed, that does benefit from it. So you're getting the lightning procs and the cold procs if you're using those spell types. So that's pretty handy and is actually what most of the top end was using. Furnace is good, too, if you need more help with Rift Guardians and stuff. But I had more fun using Shard of Hate because there was a lot of proc lightning. But then you have the Swami, which carries your stacks of Archon outside of Archon for 20 seconds. So now you're in a race, right? So you pop Archon, you got all this power, you're hitting stuff. Your 6-piece set bonus makes it to where every enemy you hit gains a stack instead of every enemy you kill. So you're gaining them pretty quick, right? You can usually get up to about 80 to 100 to 120 right now. So you get up to that high, and then you exit Archon mode, and if you've got the Swami cubes, you hold those stacks for 20 seconds. So now you're in a race. For 20 seconds, you have to build stacks of Shantotos to jump back into Archon to keep your stacks, or you're going to lose and start it all over again, or if you die or whatever happens like that, then you're going to lose the stacks anyway. So basically, the more you Archon in a Rift, the more power level you're gaining. But any little slight mess up, mistake, if you die, if you just don't do it within 20 seconds, then you're back at 0 and you're substantially lower power level, which is cool. I mean, it's an interesting mechanic, and it's not fun to play. It's just that it seems like it's so complicated for a wizard to be able to play and compete as opposed to a lot of the other classes. And that's not, again, necessarily a bad thing, but it just seems like it's incredibly taxing. And we're built the whole buff that they gave us. They gave us a 15% buff to Audacity. So we do 30% more damage to enemies within 15 yards, and that is multiplicative. So it's a good change. The problem is that we don't have the survivability to be within 15 yards, even in Archon mode, for that to make sense. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I'm playing the world's smallest violin right now for you, so
it's sad. It's really sad. The set will be cool, hopefully, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out. But most people are going to play Del Rashas on the way up to Archon. People are going to build, the Tal Rasha set or the Delsair set and combine them and use that until they get this full set for Archon. But it's just one of those things to where, it already feels like I'm headed in a direction, and you don't have that exploratory feeling where you're trying to find out what's going to fit where. It's pretty clear that we've got one or two choices for everything if we want to be optimal, especially.
Remember playing whatever gear you wanted because it was fun?
Yes.
How long ago was that no longer possible?
When
above T2?
When Greater Rifts became the meta.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying this set has got too many cool items you have to find to make it work and be super powerful. In theory, that's the whole point in the game, right?
Right.
The really powerful stuff requires a lot of specialized items to all work together.
But not a lot. But it's not the items that it takes. When you get to the top end, even right now with Tal Rasha's set, there's still a specific set of items you really want to reach that top end and be able to compete. The problem with this set is that there's so many pieces that, even with Tal Rasha's set, you can kind of mix and match. You know what? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the Tal Rasha's set is so well designed that this just feels awful. Because the Tal Rasha set, you can kind of mix and match different spells and abilities. You're still, doing the same thing essentially, but, you can mix different ideas of what you want to do with it. The thing with the Archon set is you're literally locked into at least 10 pieces that you have to have for this set to even work. You can't just have 6-piece Veer set and that be a viable build for even, high, even Torment 8, 9, 10. You still need Shantotos to do that, so now you're looking at 8. So it's just you have to build so many pieces onto it that it's going to be a drag to try to get there.
So why does Blizzard hate Wizard?
I don't know. I don't think they hate us. I think that I don't know. I just think they just want to make our life harder. It feels like, because I mean, the one damage bonus they gave us was Audacity, which puts us in melee range, and like the channeling being from Archon, because you do have a ranged attack, is just negligible compared to the melee, and it's not affected by attack speed. So it's like, it seems like they want us to play melee, but we don't have that survivability to play melee, and they removed the CC option. So it's like, so what? We just have to chain die now? Like, is that the life of softcore wizard? Seems like.
I thought that was already the life of softcore
No,
wizards.
it's not. I mean, like, it happens sometimes, but it's not. Like, it's not the goal, you know? I don't know. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm still stoked. I'm still, like, playing a Wizard Season 4. I'll be rush.
Shocking news.
Right, yeah.
Really,
I'm still...
This didn't break your Wizard allegiance.
No,
You're still playing a Wizard
absolutely,
nonstop.
Yeah, no, I'm still going to play the Wizard for sure. I'm just worried about where the design for the set is, and I feel like there's just a lot of cooler things they could have done with Archon if they were going to make Archon, where it is now. The Shantoto's change with the Wave of Destruction was a great change, but I feel like that should have been maybe baked into the Veers set, and that the Shantoto should have been more an optional piece than a necessary piece. Because literally, your Archon does no damage. It is the Wave of Destruction that is doing most of your damage when you're in Archon mode. And that doesn't even come from Veers or the Archon ability. It comes from the Shantoto 2-piece set. It's really strange. Like, it's just weird.
So we've seen some other builds where mixing and matching of sets is awesome. I mean, obviously the current, in Season 3, the Barbarian Whirlwind with the IK set as well.
Right.
And on the PTR for a while, Shinlongs with something else, 2 pieces of Ileana's before they buffed the 7-sided strike so much. So lots of other classes, you mix and match stuff. Mm-hmm. And most classes can't because they're all in the same item slots.
Right.
So you've got one of the few sets where you can mix and match a little bit. And yet it's still not good enough for you.
See, but
nothing's ever good enough for Wizards, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. No, the problem is you can't mix and match. Like, the Veer set has so many pieces you can't. There's literally...
You're just forced to get 2 different sets together, though. So.
Yeah, but I mean, now see, you can do that with the Delsairs and the Tal Rasha set. That was actually the highest performing build before the season rollover with the addition of the belt. The seasonal belt makes Veers top out a little higher than Tal Rasha's. Tal Rasha's plus Delsairs, at least. When that belt came out, so if you're playing, eras, if you're playing non-seasonal, you're going to be running Del Rasha build, which is pretty interchangeable. A lot of different options you can do, a lot of different things you can do. But then in the new season, to compete with, the people that are running Archon, you will perpetually be running Archon just the way it is now. You have to kind of hit that peak that they're hitting in order to compete and be able to keep up with them. That now we're going to be forced into that, which is fine. It's going to happen. It's crazy to me that the build takes so many moving parts to work, and it takes away a lot of options.
So is there an obvious fix to this, or is there just too many different pieces? You don't want to put 4 legendary properties on one belt or something.
I don't think there's a quick, or I don't have the answer for this. I do feel like that it would be in a better direction to put the Shantoto set piece bonus baked in with Veers, and move maybe one of Veers, like maybe move the Archon gains every rune to a different item piece instead, and completely do Shantotos with something else. But it's basically until you find that ancient Shantotos, or the best Shantotos you possibly can, like, you're not going to be able to... And you're going to need ancient weapon and offhand for that to happen, and then you're also going to need, the full Veer set for that to happen, and then you're also going to need the Halo of Arliss and the Ancient Parthenon Defenders to happen, and then you can kind of do whatever immunity amulet, and then, like, Convention of Elements. Like, those are your choices. Like, you could do, like, Stone of Jordan or Convention of Elements. That's your choice with Veers.
At least you're not focus restraint.
This is true, but that's
the one class and one build in the game. That's not FR.
Which again is part of Archon's problem. Is the only multiplayer really is Audacity and then whatever legendary gems you use. So that's where the limiting factor is, because the stacks for Archon are additive. So even if you've got 200, 300 whatever stacks, it's still additive damage, not multiplicative. That's why your wave of force damage is what's really doing it with Shantotos.
How high can the stacks go?
Before the change, because the belt started you at 50 stacks, which was really powerful and it felt good. And it felt a little bit better. They nerfed that to 15 to 20 stacks now, and it just... Usually the first round Archon you do, depending, plan density and, like, herding and stuff, you can get up, easy to 120, 150. But, towards the end of a Rift, if you've, been able to balance the stacks, you can usually get up to 250 or 300. Before, you get up to 450, 500, which was still doing good damage, but, we weren't clearing, obscenely higher than anybody else. It took a lot more work for us to get there.
So it sounds like you're just unhappy that it takes skill to play a wizard now. You just want to be a button masher. You work at a game store. You just want to play consoles. You just want to button mash, right?
That's exactly it. No, it's not. It's not even that. It's just that I like having options, and I don't like being forced to play Archon. But if I'm gonna be forced,
well, you have options. You can play other sets and suck.
And not compete in the meta, which is I guess the real problem is I guess I could just not care and just play T7 or T8 and be happy with that, but. I liked where we were last season with Tower Ashes and where it was. You were still pigeonholed into certain things, but you had kind of an option if you wanted to do a couple different ideas with it. And most classes have that at the top end. I want the Wizard to have that at the top end. And, again, they could maybe buff Del Rosses a little bit to get up there, bring Veers, or, do something differently with the Veer set or the Shantoto set. But right now, I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm hoping that something passes Veers so I don't have to play Veers all season.
You could just play hardcore instead, and we just play in T1 all the time.
Yeah.
So you could pretty much use any gear you want and just play in T1, and you won't have to worry about any of this meta stuff and this T8 stuff.
Yeah, there you go. It'd be fun. I mean, it would be fun. And I mean, a lot of the fun with starting a new character in a new season is the kind of build going up. And you usually, start your character knowing what you want to do and kind of work for it. You can't do that with this because you have to wait so long before you can actually piece it together. There's just a lot wrong with the set, it feels right now. It's powerful at the top end. If you get every piece, it's great. But getting those pieces is going to be really interesting. And to see how it plays out this season will be interesting in and of itself.
And so that is your current complaint. And probably they're not going to do any major overhauls to that, given that we've only got a week to go in this before the patch goes up, basically.
Right.
We got 2 weeks for the season, but barely over a week for the patch, so you're pretty much just screwed.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to wait until they'd iterated on it. I wanted to see, I'd played it in pretty much after all the patches and stuff at first iteration, and I enjoy it. It's an interesting set, and it's different. It's vastly different from the first Archon set, but it's just there's some things with it that just seem off. Why stack attack speed on a skill that doesn't use attack speed? That doesn't make sense, right? That's one of your 6-piece set bonuses.
It's like the Chewbacca set. It does not make sense. It does not make sense. Why is Chewbacca from Endor? He's a Wookiee. So, this was an issue last season with Tal's set initially. Nobody liked how the mechanics were. It was too much button mashing. You had to use all these crappy skills just to make your meteor super powerful.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon, after a week, everyone's like, this is the greatest set ever. I love it.
It's better than
it's just going to grow on you?
I don't think so. I still feel the same way about the Tau set. It still feels clunky to me. Compared to, the way that, certain, Raiment set feels on the Monk or, the Wrath of the Way set feels on the Barb. Those sets feel good. And it's not that they don't feel, you're not hitting useless skills to boost something else. You're literally, with Tower Ashes set, juggling 4 or 5 different modifiers and multipliers and then your gems and, there's so many things you have to pay attention to, which is not bad. But it's just we don't have the UI interface to be able to keep up with everything half the time. If our towel stacks aren't showing on our bar because, we are buffed by somebody in the group, then I don't know when to do my optimal, in quotes, damage, because you literally have to pay attention to that. You have to pay attention to when that 4-second window happens and you can drop that conventional elements, meteor spam or, stuff like that. And it's just it's cool, but it's just overly complicated. I don't know. It's overly complicated.
Okay, so it's overly complicated, but you're going to be playing anyway.
Yes,
so
because it's still amazing.
So we were looking earlier, it's about just basically 2 weeks from right now. You'll be 4 hours into Season 4. Will you be on your 9th bag of Cheetos and Mountain Dew? What is your plan for that night?
Unfortunately, I'm actually on vacation that week. I'll be at the beach, and then I actually come back on the 28th that morning. So I'm going to come home, nap, get up, and then I'm going to play as soon as the season starts, probably rush to 70, play as long as I can, and then I have to get on a plane, and I'll be in Vegas the week after. So it's literally I have a little bit of time between 2 vacations to do that, which is awesome. I'm excited to go do stuff, but I'm really sad I'm going to miss a good part of the first week. And then when I come back, I'll hit it super hard.
Yeah, good thing I got the world's smallest violin out earlier.
I know, right? Yeah.
Because now you're I really have time to play any Diablo 3 between my 2-week-long vacation.
Well, I haven't taken vacation all year, so I'm burning some time. And there's technically one of them when I go out west is it's work stuff. So it's vacation. I'll be in Las Vegas, which will be cool, but I'll be doing meetings and stuff like that. So. And
you'll be doing $200 a night horrors, what you'll be doing. Just like Bobby when the BlizzCon was in Vegas that one year.
Yep.
Oh wait, that never happened.
Yeah, never. It was too cheap for me.
Exactly. Yeah, at least 250.
Yeah, at least 250. I mean,
they bleach the roots then at least and get a nice wax every few weeks.
Yeah.
You know, whether they need it or not. So it's not so bad.
you get what you pay for, especially in that bit.
Yeah. Lovely. So, any final thoughts? I guess that was your final thoughts.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for the set. I'm excited for the season. I'm super excited for the season. The changes to rifts and everything like that in Greater Rifts, God, it's amazing. It's a lot of fun playing PTR. It makes it hard to play live. And I am excited. I will be playing Archon as soon as I build the set. I anticipate some frustration and some interesting interesting things to come out of a Wizard season this season.
A big point of debate on the podcast was that some classes do not have fast movement skill builds. Mm-hmm. The Witch Doctor and the Crusader were prominently featured. And the Wizard, of course, has one with the Ether Walker thing is incredible, but you're not using that with this set. So how is this set fair for fast movement?
It's actually,
especially given that you've now got to do...
That wave of destruction's nice.
You've got to do 25 bounties a game, man. Can you man up to that? Is this fast for that?
No, Archon's actually going to be one of our better speed clearing builds. It's pretty because especially doing Torment 6 through 10, like your Archon stacks will carry you through that. It's when you start getting to Greater Rift, 55 plus, that it starts getting pretty hairy and you need the survivability super bad. But no, it's fun. I mean, like even at Paragon, 120, I think during the PTR with the legendary buff and stuff, I was able to do I think it was 45, 46, pretty easily on farm at Paragon 120. So that was pretty good. But that's with the 2,000% legendary buff. Without that, I'm curious.
Well, that just lets you gear up faster. Obviously, you're not going to find that much gear by P120 in the real thing.
Right, exactly. But it's gonna
unless you're very, very lucky.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we're gonna have a lot of fun this season as Wizards for sure. It's just gonna be a little complicated, a little more complicated, I think, than most classes. But that's okay, I guess. I just don't want to be an Archon again. I did that for vanilla.
Well, everything that comes around goes around, right?
It does.
And it works very differently now. I remember using Archon forever ago, and I always didn't like it because there's such bad visibility of incoming projectiles.
Well, and it's a skill that removes all of your skills. You don't, no matter what you have on your bar.
All you can do is, teleport or do that big melee thing.
Right.
Of course, they've added new stuff since then in the set. But
when you get this, you get all the runes unlocked, so you get a couple other spells now. But why couldn't Archon just be, the same exact spells you have? You turn purple and do more damage. Like Wrath of the Berserker or
because they try to make different skills, different classes do different things.
Right, and it overcomplicates it and it plays weird. It's just super weird. But again, like I said, I'm super excited about the season and I'm going to play the hell out of it. I really hope that eventually they get to looking at Shantotos and Veers and seeing how it's literally an 8-piece set you have to have and there's no alternates. You don't have a 7th piece of Veers or a 3rd piece of Shantotos. You have to find those 8 specific pieces with good rules to be viable at all.
I think that's the case for a lot of classes now, though, right? I mean, pretty much everybody's got 1 or 2 legendaries that almost have to go with one of their 6 pieces.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you've got a couple legendaries, but this has 3 legendaries and another 2-piece set.
And, of course, you're Wizard, so you're special and you should be different, and it should be better for you.
We should be different.
Because you are arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for your time, Nerdbirds. And you'll be seeing you on the PTR doing a GR67 while complaining it's not fast enough. And Season 4, and Cheetos, and moo.
Moo.
Moo.